Welcome, guys. Welcome to the dark side of entrepreneurship business podcast. My show was originally called as Brand Identity Design. I think I was very limited to the design space, although I was interviewing a lot of entrepreneurs across the world. I think that was a good move to adopt the name of my series, which was called The Dark Side of Entrepreneurship. So, right now, as we speak, my show is called as The Dark Side of Entrepreneurship. Now, here in this specific podcast, we like to explore the gritty realities of building a successful brand. I'm your host, Jason, and today, me and Wendy, we both are gonna cook up something really special. Now, you might be wondering, what the hell they are trying to cook. It does involve bacon, but along with bacon, it has a lot of other interesting things too. Now, most of us are entrepreneurs with big dreams, ready to conquer the world. But there is a problem I think majority of us encounter on a day-to-day basis. That is creating content that not only grabs attention but also leaves your audience craving for more. According to me, and Wendy would agree with me, it's the ultimate challenge because crafting content that is not only tasty as bacon, and it should also convert like crazy because that's how businesses get benefited from it. So in this episode we are unraveling the secrets of creating of not creating but crafting a content recipe that's simply irresistible. And joining us is none other than Wendy Lieber, the CEO of ContentBacon. And I got this nice sound effect which I found online, which I like to share. A master art in storytelling and brand building. And from the setup to sizzle, we will explore the trials and triumphs of content creation in this digital age. Wendy would share her personal journey navigating the ever changing landscape of content marketing, and together we will uncover, or we will try to uncover, practical strategies to turn your content from bland to brilliant. So if you're out there, listening to this podcast, I don't know if you're driving at the kitchen. If you're at the kitchen, grab your apron and get ready to cook up something magical because today's episode is going to be a feast for all your senses with laughter, insights, and plenty of bacon infused wisdom. So I want to personally take the moment and welcome Wendy to the podcast. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you, Jason. And I love that introduction and how you're taking on the bacon brand. You're hired.
Well, thank you so much, Wendy. I'm so glad you have finally accepted my request, and we are here and we are doing this. Wendy happens to be one of those individuals I was very, very confident having on the show. I was so confident that I did not even do like a pre-call just to make sure things are gonna be intact. I was like, I think she got this, and all I have to do is just ensure that I gather all my notes and we should be all set. So just in case, if you don't know something about Wendy, she is the visionary co-founder, the CEO of ContentBacon, pioneering in the art of storytelling to elevate brands with a rich background in marketing, including the notable tenure as a president of Athena Marketing. Wendy's expertise has earned her prestigious awards such as the Enterprising Woman of the Year and many, many other things. Okay, so thank you so much, Wendy, once again for being here. I want to start off, with a very simple question. Okay, I've been very curious. Okay, as somebody who's into marketing and content creation, is there a reason why you have the bacon theme around your brand? Why did you specifically opt for this? Is there a reason behind it? Is there a strategy involved? Do you recommend more people to choose maybe an animal of their choice and, maybe build a brand around it or maybe something else? I remember somebody I interviewed in the beginning of this season who had like a giraffe theme, being a public speaker. His name is Elliot K. And he used to do the same thing. So I just want to hear your perspective and your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, one, thank you so much for having me. And as I've mentioned to you, your whole process is so professional and organized. I've really just appreciated the process leading up to this. In regards to your question, when we were coming up with the brand, for this new company, this new venture, we went through a pretty extensive branding process, and part of that was coming up with a lot of different names, things that fit together, things that were available, and we arrived at Content Bacon for a couple different reasons. I mean, everybody loves bacon. Bacon makes everything better. Bacon is one of those things that you can add to almost anything, and the net effect is, better, tastier, more brilliant. And so it just made sense because with content, it's very similar. You can take a great idea, you can take a great vision, but if you don't have the right content to share it, express it, talk about it, it kind of lands flat. And so putting the two together really it tells a micro story. It's, bacon has a lot of attributes. It's sizzling, it's tasty, it's crispy. So we have a lot of fun with it, which is part of our brand. And so absolutely there was a strategy to coming up with the name, and it's served us well.
That is super cool. Do you encourage more entrepreneurs to maybe opt in to the same theme or maybe replicate the same theme which you have going on? Do you think that's a wise idea or does it require a lot more planning?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if companies, I mean, branding is so important, and it's not a one and done thing. That, it's some like we're right now in the process of going through an evolution of our brand. So stay tuned over the coming month. You're going to see kind of a whole new look and feel and messaging because it's, you know, this is our 10th year in business. We're celebrating our 10 years, and who we are today is, I wouldn't say very different, but it's very evolved from where we started. And we're much more sophisticated. We're much, more experienced. And so it requires the brand to keep up to date. And so I absolutely believe that companies should always be, certainly in the beginning, it's a, it's a meaty process. It's not like, oh, let me use this tool and see what names available. And it's like there needs to be a strategy behind it. There needs to be a lot of thought, and it's important, and it continues to be important.
Absolutely, absolutely. I could not agree more. I wanted to actually, before we continue asking more questions to you, Wendy, I wanted to acknowledge a few people who just joined the conversation. I want to acknowledge Phyllis, who's been in the restaurant business and she was into barbecues a lot. I'm sure she would definitely have questions when we do our Q&A. So Phyllis, I'm excited. Thank you so much for joining. I see Leslie and I also see Thomas. And if you don't know who Thomas is, he's a long-term listener and he actually listens to my show from Australia. It's early morning in Australia. So thank you so much for this love and commitment, Thomas. I really appreciate this. And Leslie, once again, you've been a cheerleader on this show from the very beginning, back in 2022 when I started. So thank you so much. We really appreciate this a lot. Now, I have a fun question, okay? Now, I've been thinking about this, and while I was trying to prep for our interview, I was like, does content creation demands creativity, and does it really require like a distinct skill set, or is basic intelligence sufficient?
Well, I mean, it definitely demands creativity and a distinct skill set because there are so many types of content creation. And in order for content to be effective, it does have to be part of an overall marketing strategy. It's a cog in the wheel. It's not the only thing, it's one of the things. And your audiences, depending on where they're at in the customer journey, are looking for different types of content. When someone's just learning about you, educational content, is key. And really having a lot of content that helps solve problems really helps make your audience, better in some way. It's kind of like a give before you get. Whereas as your customers go through the journey, they may need more in-depth content. They need more conversion-oriented content, more brand awareness content. So there's all different, the word content is such a kind of a big word. And the real reason for doing content is so that you can connect, so that you can build a relationship, so that you can get someone to feel something, so that you can share something in a way that has you stand out. And so those are not easy things to do. And They're not things that you can only do once and then be done with it. So it requires curiosity. It requires really thinking about your audience and what's important to them. And so, yeah, I guess after all that, the short answer is yes, it requires a lot of creativity. And then, as things evolve, as new tools become, more prevalent, we see the way we all consume content to change and be different. And so you have to keep up with that. So it's an ongoing thing that you have to constantly be learning about, consuming on your own so that you can stay relevant and you can really connect with your audience in a meaningful way.
Super cool. I appreciate you sharing all that wealth of information. And out of all the things which you said, Wendy, couple of things which really stood out. I was under the impression that the core objective of a content was to grab attention, and once you grab attention, then you connect and then you build a relationship. But you on the other side, you said that the objective is to connect and build a relationship. So isn't attention really important? I mean, the reason why you throw content out there is to gain people's attention in the first place, right? Because if they if it comes to their attention and if it's repeatedly done, they might be curious enough to explore the brand, maybe learn a lot more about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the natural first place is if you're just starting to, generate awareness for your product or service or, brand, you have to get attention. But right alongside with that, delivering something that then provides value. I know myself, I cannot stand something that grabs my attention and then I go down the path and it's just a bunch of noise. It's just a bunch of let me sell, sell, sell you. There's no value. It completely eradicates the relationship from the get go. And so I don't think it's just one thing. I think you have to, as you're developing your content strategy, you have to think about what's important to your audience and what's going to deliver that value so someone does want to stay engaged because when if you focus just on grabbing attention, which of course is very important, but don't then deliver on value and really enhancing the experience, it's just going to be all for naught. It's like having great ads that lead you to a really shitty landing page or lead you to somewhere on a website that has nothing to do with the ad. It's not effective. And at the end of the day, I believe you have to think about the whole journey, not just the one piece of the journey.
Totally agree. I think you clarified that very well. Do you think individuals, typically entrepreneurs who are kind of starting up this whole content game, trying to push their business, let's say that they are not really in a position to hire you or somebody who does the same thing which you do or your company does, okay? How can they cultivate their creativity?
Yeah, I think again, I'll probably sound a little redundant. I'm going to keep saying it, but it starts with who are you trying to reach? What's the value that you are giving that audience? What makes you unique and differentiated? And then how are you going to use all of that to communicate to your audience consistently in a way that adds value for them? So I don't think there's an easy answer like hey, this is what you can do. I think it starts with you have to kind of do the basics and have a strategy where you really understand who you're trying to reach, what's important to them, and how you can add value. And then based on how you answer those questions, coming up with what you can do. So um, whether it's posting regularly on social media, but in a way that's really adding value and then engaging with your audience versus like I see a lot of people spend a lot of resources on one way communication on social media. And it's one of my pet peeves because social media is meant to be social. So when people, engage with you and you're not engaging back, to me, it's like you're just leaving so much on the table. So I think entrepreneurs just starting out, they need to kind of figure out where is the best place to reach their audience and how they can do that consistently, and then just do perhaps that one thing. And whether that's, newsletter content, social media content, website content, being on podcast, it's you've got to strategize, and then you've got to pick, and then you've got to do, implement, rinse and repeat.
That is super cool. That is super cool. I really like what you said. Social media is meant to be social. We need like an oink oink for that. That is super cool. Okay, now a lot of things which you said, and I want to just break it down. So you said that when you're trying to create content, you need to do, you need to know whom you're trying to reach, what makes you unique, how will you communicate your value proposition, or what makes you unique, and you need to have not just basics, but have like a strategy in place so that you can effectively reach all those individuals. And I totally agree. I'm with you 100%. I was thinking, can content be bifurcated into different types of content? Because I think you did name a few. You did mention website. I remember you saying newsletter. What are the other kind of contents? If you can maybe give us a little classification for people who don't know this.
Sure. Yeah, like I said earlier, I think the word content is such a like all-encompassing word. And I think for most entrepreneurs, most businesses, the the basic types of content that you should be thinking about and looking at is, well, first and foremost, your website, right? Your website is still going to be the hub and where people are at some point going to go and check you out prior to making a purchase. There's probably some instances where that's not true. So it's not like an all encompassing blanket statement, but a website should not be just a brochure. It should be something where people can come again and again and get value. And so that requires having updated content. Maybe it's in the form of articles. Those articles could be written, they could be video, but having new information that gets posted to your site on a consistent basis. So your site is more than just, let me tell you who we are. It's also a place where there's resources and there's a reason for your audience to come back again and again. And again, that's the hub. And then I think from that, having different ways for your audience to engage with you while they're on your site. So that could be opting into a newsletter, that could be opting in to a webinar. They could see your social media on there and want to check you out on social media. So those become other types of content that you want to make sure you're populating, that you're staying active on. We often will have companies come to us that are doing really well, but they've neglected their digital presence, and they may not look like they're doing well because you go to their social media and there hasn't been an update in 6 or more months, or you go to their site and there's, the last article they posted was a long time ago. It gives the impression that, oh my goodness, are they in trouble? Are they out of business? So, landing pages specific to a campaign are important. Using social media, as we mentioned, and using the formats that are best for those social media. So how you appear on LinkedIn might be very different than how you appear on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or X. So I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, there's ebook content, there's email nurturing content. There's so many different types of content, and it all links back to what's the customer journey? How does someone go from being a stranger to a visitor to a prospect to a lead to a customer to a repeat customer to a referral source, and then rinse and repeat? And that to me is the most important thing, is really understanding the journey and then outlining the different types of content you need to support each of those areas along the journey. Now, if that feels overwhelming, it doesn't mean you have to do all of them at once. If you're, at a stage where you're launching a new product or service and you need to generate a lot of awareness, maybe you focus on that for a while and you give that, your 100% attention, and other things might not get your attention until you build momentum up. So it just depends on what size you're at, what your goals are, and what your resources are. I'd rather you do one thing and do it well and do it consistently, and, not do everything, or even, multiple things and do them, kind of half-ass.
Totally agree. Half hours does not help anyone, right? So I think what I understand from this is that be have some clarity and have some understanding on your goals and your objectives and where you want to reach with them, and have your content play side by side to those goals, in conjunction to those goals. And I think that might help you to accomplish things faster. And uh, rather than getting into the whole game of being everywhere and you know everywhere all the time, or omnipresence, I would say, Wendy, and I think you said the same thing. It's better to focus on one and just build from one, and maybe it's less. I think it's less work also, right? In a way, because you can have your. Okay, let me ask you this, okay? Because you said something that your presence on LinkedIn and on Instagram, on X and other platforms may be different. Now, do you think that has to be that way? Can't you have like maybe the same style across all the channels, or does it have to be different?
I think the style, like the tone and personality, your brand voice should be the same, but the way those channels what those channels use are very different. LinkedIn is more the business networking social media channel. When people are on Facebook, you know, they're in a different mentality. When you're on Instagram, Instagram is so much more visual. People aren't necessarily looking to read long posts. So I think you have to think about how your audience is consuming content on each of those. It's very common for companies to take one post and then just publicize it amongst all of them, and they typically do that at the same time. Again, I don't think that's a best practice, and I think I'd rather see maybe the nature of the content, the post is similar, but how it's delivered and what visuals you may be using and what language you may be using is slightly different and native to the platform. I think it's just more effective when you think about how your audience is showing up on each platform and what they may be looking for.
That is super cool. Can I be a guinea pig for a second, Wendy? And I like you to
Yeah.
dissect my process and tell me because I kind of created the same post for LinkedIn, Instagram. Maybe the orientation of it is slightly different. Okay, so how is that approach negatively affecting me?
I don't know that I could say that it's negatively affecting you. It could be social fatigue. So if someone's following you on all of those platforms and they're seeing the same post from you on all of those platforms at generally the same time, it could leave the impression of like a little fatigue, like, okay, and maybe they stop following you on one because they don't want to continue to be inundated with the same content across each channel. So that might be a way it negatively affects you or impacts you. And that's just something to look at. As I mean, statistics, looking at the statistics of your results is super important so that you can see when you post what's happening. Are you gaining more followers? Are you creating engagement? Or are you losing um, followers? And if you see that it's having a negative impact, then you could adjust the strategy. Maybe the adjustment is something simple, like you just post at different times. That might solve it, right? Maybe instead of posting on LinkedIn and Instagram at the same time, you post at LinkedIn on a Monday at 10 a.m. and you post on Instagram, Tuesday at 2 p.m. That could potentially work. I think it's something just to consider and think about. and also think about how those type things land on you. Are when you see the same post across multiple channels, do you like that, or do you sometimes get that fatigue? So I think sometimes consuming other people's, media and seeing how it lands on you can give you great ideas, or can also, give you cues on maybe what not to do because, it might have a slightly, negative effect.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know. Is it my notification which is on? Like I can hear like
No,
a.
that was mine. I'm sorry. I'm gonna turn that off.
That's all right. That's all right. Okay, next question. Okay, and I appreciate you giving me some clarity. Let me think about this and see what I can do to make it better. My next question is: do you think creating or content creation is kind of different from traditional advertising or marketing?
Yeah, so I think content creation is part of an overall marketing strategy, right? Every company should have a marketing plan. And, this again goes back to who are you trying to reach? What's important to them? Where do they hang out? Where are you going to reach them? What's your unique selling proposition? And then determine what tools you're going to use to reach them, promote, and where does content play a role? And often it's going to be a mix of all of the above. I think maybe the way people traditionally think about advertising and marketing is more outbound, where I mean advertising is typically paid. You're putting some dollars behind it, but you still need a good content strategy to leverage those dollars. This goes back to what I was saying. If you're putting ads on Facebook and you're driving people back to a landing page and you are not delivering a great experience once you get them to take the action you want them to take, then you're just wasting those dollars. I see it all the time. I see people have great ads, compelling ads, attention grabbing ads, but then the the journey that you take doesn't deliver on, what promise or what value you're expecting to get. So to me, content is part of the overall strategy. And then for instance, let's say you're placing ads for, you want someone to buy a product. Maybe you have something very transactional that someone will just go to your site and buy the product. Great. But then do you have any kind of ongoing nurturing to get them to come back and buy more product, or to suggest additional, products? That's all part of a content strategy. And so to me, they're not distinct. They work hand in hand with each other. I think maybe a misconception is, I think when content marketing, inbound marketing, that terminology started to get used a lot. I think it started to create a perception that, oh, I can put a lot of content on my site and I'll just get all these inbound leads and I don't have to do this other stuff. And I think that doesn't always work. I think that it can work, but I think that that's kind of a misconception. And I think that a lot of companies will invest in inbound marketing from that perspective, not get the results that they're looking for, and then abandon a content marketing strategy because they associate it with blogging or social media, and or thinking like, oh, I'm just going to wait for the leads to come in and I don't need to do outbound anymore. And I don't think that it ever works like that. I think that you've got to have a mix. I mean, we're inundated with so many different messaging, so many different types of content, so many different types of channels, and so you've got to have multiple touch points in order to reach your audience effectively and consistently.
So I'm really glad you brought some of the misconceptions there. So multiple having multiple touch points, people have a misconception that you should not really have one, and having multiple touch points really help. Are there any other misconceptions you have experienced or you have come across other than this?
Oh goodness, I think there's a lot. I think that I think a lot of companies think about content marketing like only blogging and articles or only social media. Like a lot of times when, you mention content marketing, people might automatically just associate it with social media, not realizing all the other things that you need to do. I think thinking that it produces immediate results, anyone can do it. More traffic equals success, more likes equals success. Um, I think that there's probably more misconceptions, but I think those are some of the misconceptions. I think, you know, and I'm sure we'll touch upon it, but I think with AI, a lot of what's out there today is like SEO is dead. Well, SEO isn't dead. SEO is still relevant. Will it change, and will how, people find you change? Absolutely. But today, making sure that you have indexable content that your customers are searching for, your prospects are searching for, is still super important. And so I think those are some of the misconceptions. And I could probably go on and on.
I think you have highlighted some of the major ones, so I appreciate you sharing that. SEO, yes, I totally agree with you personally. That's what I feel too. SEO is still relevant. You need to still index it to make sure that people are able to discover you and find you. Let me ask you another thing though. I've noticed many entrepreneurs, okay, who have good expertise, industry expertise, and are thought leaders, have a good understanding of their business, they still struggle with content creation even after having such ginormous expertise. So why is that such entrepreneurs are not able to really figure out this magical formula?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different reasons. I think it may not be the best and highest use of your time. So, it's why companies like ours exist, because it's not easy to create content on a consistent basis, content that's effective, content that's compelling. And it doesn't mean that you as the entrepreneur don't have that knowledge, don't have that understanding, but there's a difference between, having that knowledge and understanding and being able to produce it on a consistent basis. And is that the best and highest use of your time? And it might not always be. You may be, building a business, leading and managing a team, like working on things that take you away from doing content creation. So, partly a priority. The fact that it does take time and focus, it's typically, you know, I don't, I can't say how long it should take someone or how long, someone should allocate. But I know for myself, it's not something where I can have a choppy day and then just be like, okay, I've got to do some content creation. It's like I need to focus, and then it needs to be related to an overall strategy so that I can make sure that what's being created is going to be effective. So I think it's just not as simple as, hey, I know my business. I know what I should talk about. Therefore, I should be able to do it. It's, it's why, most of us as entrepreneurs, we have coaches, we invest in a lot of things that we already know, but it just helps us with that support that we need to ensure that we're spending our time in the areas that are going to have the biggest impact on our company.
I agree completely on this, the best use of time example which you shared, because personally, I also experience the same thing. It's difficult when you do all these things to remove time and to work on creating content. It's an exhaustive process, and as a solopreneur myself, okay, and I've been doing this for quite a long time, at some point you would reach exhaustion. Now, I wanted to actually bring up another point which you just said. There is a possibility you may not have time because you might be involved with clients doing multiple things, etc., etc., etc. So, does that mean that the business is really working well? It's actually generating revenue. It does not make any sense to invest time in creating content because it's bringing the bucks anyway, right? Why should I invest time in creating content?
I think it's about scalability and your growth goals. I think what works as it depends where your company is at. If you're in startup phase, you're, probably, the cook, the cleaner, the dishwasher, the waiter, the hostess, you're wearing multiple hats, and that will get you only so far, where depending on your goals, as you grow and scale, you've got to start hiring other people or outsourcing things so that you can grow and scale. And that's one of the biggest challenges of being a solo entrepreneur is, how do you effectively grow and scale without it all being on you to do? And, being a solo entrepreneur can be, you can be the biggest strength of the company, but you can also be the biggest weakness if you're not willing to let some of the control go and outsource some of the things like content creation, like your marketing, like building a sales team, or whatever those key things are that are going to help you grow so that you can reach the next level. Because if you're not growing, you're dying, and you've got to figure out a way to grow and scale. You can still stay a simple structure. Not everyone wants to build, a multi-million dollar company or wants to have a team of, you know, 10, 20, 50 or more. So depending on what your goals are, both from a revenue growth standpoint, but also structure, you just kind of have to figure out what you're going to need to do in order to get there. And I think one of the biggest hindrances of being a solo entrepreneur is um, feeling like you can't delegate things or not having the right team, whether it's, other solo entrepreneurs that have specialties in areas that you don't, to outsource and, spread the load.
Totally agree. You just answered my question. Oh, shit. Scalability. If you don't want to scale, just continue doing what you're doing, right? If you want to scale and become big, then obviously you need to go that extra mile. And that extra mile can make a lot of difference, Wendy. So, very sweet way of answering my question. I really appreciate that. That is super cool. Now, let's talk about some solution. Could you maybe share some tips or maybe simple strategies when a solopreneur or somebody who's small, maybe struggling to create content, guide them, what they can do, maybe three or four things which they can do initially to get a little boost?
I think one of the simplest things that you can do to kickstart this process is think about all the frequently asked questions you're either getting, during the marketing and sales process, or you wish you would get, questions that you wish people would ask you, and start to build out a content strategy based on those frequently asked questions. So if you're, going through the sales process and your prospects, typically ask, 5, 6, 7 key questions, start to answer them through social media posts, blog articles, videos, whatever is going to be the easiest thing for you to do to answer them, and build that out. That to me is one of the best ways to start to create content that really works for your audience. I think some of the other things, start small and build. So don't try to do everything all at once. Like, really figure out that customer journey and where content is going to play the biggest role. It may not be during the awareness phase. Maybe you do a great job of generating a lot of awareness for your product or service, but you don't do a great job of nurturing those leads. And there's maybe your sales cycle is, rather long, and you need a way to stay engaged with that audience during that cycle. Having an effective content strategy, an effective email nurturing sequence, automating some of that it could be a heavy lift in the beginning, but once you get it set up, it kind of runs on autopilot, and it can feel like having another person on your team that's nurturing those potential contacts for you. So that's another, I think, really great way to leverage your output is, use tools like sequences, workflows, automation. And then I think really just caring about your audience, when it can't just be you trying to sell something, you trying to get something. I'm a big believer that you have to give before you get. And so caring about your audience, what can you share with them that's going to enhance their lives? It's going to make their job easier. That's going to, solve something that they're dealing with. And that builds trust and likability. And people do business with people they know, like, and trust. So I'm a big believer in that. And then something that I think is extremely important, and not a lot of companies or individuals within companies do this well, is actually have a story to tell, have a point of view. Be willing to be provocative, be willing to be controversial. Don't be boring or generic. Don't just regurgitate the same stuff. Like, have a point of view. Like, be willing to share, like, what others aren't willing to share. And I think that helps you stand out, and that helps you connect with your audience. Not everyone is going, people go to our site and they get a sense of who we are. We're we use curse words. We're very, like, we can be a bit, provocative, in your face. Not everyone likes that. That's okay. We're not trying to target everyone. We're trying to target an audience that we connect with. And so we do that by being authentic.
So I like some of the solutions which you have provided us, and my listeners and myself. So have answer some of the some of the key questions a customer or people would be interested in knowing. Answer those questions. Create content around that. Have a point of view. Don't be generic. Have a story. Figure out your customer journey. These are awesome solutions which you have provided, my listeners, Wendy. Now, can I talk about how we can measure the efforts versus results? So how can we do that by applying all these things? How can we figure out if it's really effective or if it's working, not working, etc.?
Yeah, I think there's kind of three key levers, we like to look at. So the first lever is, are you are you building an audience? Are you increasing awareness? Now, the simplest way to measure that is, you know, traffic on your website. Is your traffic growing? What pages are people going to? How much time are people spending on the site? Your social media can also, play a role in that. But that's like kind of the first lever. The second is conversions or interest. Are you getting people to engage with you? That might mean, are they somehow raising their hand to say, I like what you're saying. I want to be part of your community. That could be, and then having ongoing, effective nurturing for that audience. And then, are you able to turn those leads into customers? So those are really the three key levers that we look at when we're dealing with the company and coming up with the content strategy: is building more awareness, measurement, traffic; building more interest, measurement, conversions; building more, revenue, metric, customer, transaction value. And then there's other things. Once, you can, we like to have our customers think about the entire customer journey. So once you have a customer, what are you doing to keep them informed of new products or services? Keep your retention. So there's other things you can do as well. But the three that I mentioned are, to me, where I would start. And going back to what we talked about earlier, you may not be able to focus on all three at once. You may need to determine where's the weak spot. And this is what maybe you're getting tons of traffic to your site. And we talked about earlier, like, traffic can be a vanity metric, right? Or social media followers could be a vanity metric if you're not converting a proportion of those into interested community. And so if you're getting lots of traffic but you can't convert, you may be getting the wrong traffic, or you may not have the appropriate conversion opportunities to give someone, that opportunity to say, hey, like, I want to know more.
That is awesome. I'm so sorry I had a little technical glitch in between, and I just lost my screen. So just in case if you guys have noticed, I had to come back. So I did miss a couple of things, but I think I have like a general idea. You said three levers. One is traffic to your website. Second is, are people engaging? I just want to make sure I understand what was the third lever again.
Revenue. Are you
R-
turning that interest into revenue?
Awesome. Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that, Wendy. I think it makes a lot of sense. So you, I mean, if you have the scalability, if you have resources in place, you can focus on all three. Or else if you're just beginning, just focus on one at a time and keep building up and see how things go. Have you noticed, Wendy, sometimes, when we're not looking at the vanity metrics, and something which you also said, right? You create content and you can be very provocative, and people tune in and people also tune out. Okay, so there is a possibility that maybe the people who are being engaged are the ones whom you really want to support and help, and a lot of people tune out. Do you think that really affects the growth metrics? When people look at it, you would be like, 100 people came to my website, but only three of them stuck around. So does that mean that what I'm creating is not really engaging, exciting, interesting for people? Wouldn't you
Yeah,
consider
I mean,
all?
I,
Uh-huh.
I think it depends on your market size and your addressable market. I think if you have a large market, those numbers would probably be concerning to me. And I, 3 out of 100. I mean, it's 3%. So it just depends. That could be a great conversion rate. It depends on your value too. What you're selling. Customer value. If the value of one customer is $1 million, those three interested parties might be all you need. Whether if it's a much lower value, you may need a lot more interested prospects in order to hit your growth number. So I think they're all metrics that you have to set goals for, look at industry standards, and look at what would be effective for you. Set the baseline of what you want, figure out where you're at today, create goals to get there, and then constantly be reviewing how you're tracking against your goals, and then use those data points to make adjustments. If you find something's working really well, great, do more of it. If you find something's not working and you've been at it long enough, so that you've got a good sample size, maybe it's time to pivot, make some changes, do some different testing. So I think the data is extremely important, and it's really important to create the right data set so it becomes a bit of a science, and it's not like, I think what can be common in smaller companies, and especially with marketing folks, is it's the idea of the week, right? And trying a lot of different things, and if you don't have consistency, it becomes very challenging to determine what actually works. And I believe, and what I'm always trying to do, and what we're trying to do in our company for ourselves and for our customers, is to create scalability. So to create enough sample sizes and enough, consistency, so that we can actually say with certainty what works and what doesn't, so that we can move in that direction versus, oh, that didn't work this week. Let's try something else. Let's try something else. And then you never really know what works or what doesn't.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is so cool. I appreciate you sharing that, Wendy, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And your perspective on scalability and how you need to integrate that at the core does really make sense. Now, there could be a point wherein entrepreneurs do want to invest the time and resources into content creation, and they might need some help. So let's say that they are trying to figure out who would be ideal to seek help from. What suggestions would you recommend to those entrepreneurs? What are the things they should look out for, or expertise they should look out for before hiring somebody?
Yeah, I think depending on, if you have a clear marketing strategy and you need support on the execution, then, identifying companies that are really good at execution and can kind of fit into your model and be an extension of your team. I mean, that's really where we thrive is, we're not a marketing agency. We're content as a service. That's the lane we operate in. That's what we do really, really well. Like, I like to think we're, the best in the world at creating content that connects. If you don't have that in place and you need more of a bigger picture marketing strategy, you really need someone to come in and help you identify how to take your product or service to market, who you should be reaching out to. That's a different set of, problems where, a more traditional marketing agency might be able to help you for at that stage before you can potentially engage in a company like ours to help with execution. So I think it kind of goes back to identifying what problems you need help solving and then determine who is an expert in those respective fields to help you solve. And I think budget also, right? Because if you've got, a certain budget in mind, it may mean the difference of going to a company that's got a full team and full capabilities versus finding another maybe freelancer or solopreneur that might fit your budget, more appropriately given the stage. So I think you have to factor in all of those things. Again, we live in a day and age where it's so much easier to access resources all over the world. Doesn't mean it's easy to find the right resources and then, still execute, but certainly, with resources like Upwork and all the different groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, it's a lot easier to access talent and, find perhaps the right expertise at the right budget to help you fill the gap.
I totally agree. Yes, we have access to all the resources out there, but it's not necessary that they would be able to execute the same thing which you aim to achieve. So I totally agree there. Now I want to open up the floor to the people who are listening to us. So
Yeah.
if anybody is interested in coming up and engaging with this tasty content which we have been creating for the past 50 minutes, you're welcome to raise your hand and please come up and do not hesitate to ask Wendy a question or contribute to something which she said. I'm all game for anything. So, my
Me
next
too.
question while we're waiting for people to join is what excites you about the future of this content marketing game which is going on? Do you see any sort of
Yeah.
trends which is kind of shaping this industry as we speak? You spoke about AI. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm super excited, and we've like I mentioned earlier, we're kind of going through the evolution of our brand, and something we've uncovered is so many companies invest in CRMs, customer relationship management software like HubSpot, Salesforce, Zoho, and they're only using a small fraction of its power. And so we've really taken on how to support companies to use content to fuel their CRM in a meaningful way that gets them results. And so I think as more and more technology makes things, more accessible and gives companies the ability to maximize output, the role of good, meaningful content becomes more important. And so, we just see content continues to be a key challenge that a lot of companies have. And, we're excited to be that resource, be that solution. And as far as AI, AI is a great tool in your toolbox. I think where it can be used to do things better, faster, cheaper, it's great. I have not seen any AI tool that can create from beginning to end content that connects without human interaction. And so, absolutely, I'm a big proponent of using AI to be more effective, to be more efficient, and to open up, the market so that it's accessible to everyone. But, I also see the flip side and so many companies pushing out mediocre content because they're just relying on the AI tools and they're not wrapping the strategy around it, and then they're not making sure that it has that human feel that connects. And I just read a stat yesterday that the difference between human generated content and AI content, there's like a 10 times more impact from human generated content. And I hope that never changes, not because I'm against AI, but I just think that connecting human to human is such an integral part of being alive and being a human that I don't necessarily, it doesn't excite me to live in a world where everything's done, through large language models and AI, and we lose that ability to really connect.
I am with you 100%. The human touch does make a huge difference. I hope AI does not replace it. I think the reason why, and this is just my personal opinion, I think people are leaning on to AI is because of the productivity it offers.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's interesting, interests people to lean on to AI for, maybe for content or maybe for something else. But the human touch, does can make a significant difference, definitely. I want to welcome Angelica to the stage. Thank you so much for your patience. Do you have a question? Would you like to contribute or simply say hi?
I have a question and I want to say hi. Hi.
Hi.
It's good to be here and thanks, Jason. I always love your rooms, my friend. You always bring such value. And thank you, Wendy, for all of your shares today. It's so funny how um, content creation has grown. I used to work at advertising company called Gray Advertising in New York,
Oh, yeah.
and I see the difference, of how it's easier for the little guy, the small business to grow because of social media, right? So I have a question because I have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course LinkedIn. And I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where I've really grown to have, I would say, my tribe, and uh, uh, I've I have a connection, you know. I see people that in the room now like Jay and Planteen, and I know that I've seen Thomas and Leslie before, but I think that it's so important to have that connection, and I agree with you. We don't want AI to take over that connection because they can, because human and human is where you got the heart. So, but my question is, how would I have a children's book for preschoolers, and so it's for 3 to 5 year olds mainly. I mean, it could even be for 1 to 5 year olds. But I was wondering, how would my message change for my content change on each of those platforms, like TikTok, Instagram, um, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
Yeah. So, well, one, great to meet you. Thanks for coming up and asking a question, and congratulations on having a children's book. I
Thank you.
I I think the way it would change is thinking about, you one, who your audience is, which I would gather it's probably parents, maybe moms. You would know better than I, but that's kind of what comes to mind. And then where are they most likely to be? And then, you know, based on that, pick your primary channel or channels. And it could be within Facebook, maybe there's specific groups of moms where you having a presence in those groups and contributing, adding value, sharing might be super productive for you as a way to generate relationships. Maybe on LinkedIn, your approach might be different. It might be looking for publishers, it might be looking for more that one to many. Maybe it's teachers, more the business relationships. TikTok, again, it could be, you know, you may have to do some more fun stuff, you may have to dance, right? To get attention, or whatever the strategy might be. So I think it's just thinking about your audience and where your audience is on those channels and what they're doing on those channels, and then how you might show up so that you do build a relationship with them. It could also be not about initially you posting anything, but maybe you contributing to post. I think it's one of the most overlooked tactics is so often when people are building their social media strategy, they feel like it's got to be about them, having that presence. And I think that's important, but it may be you just being an amazing contributor to your audience on those channels to build that relationship so that when you do start posting, they want to contribute back to you because you've been so generous. And again, I think there's different ways to engage on each of those that, you might be looking for different audiences. So I'll pause there and see if that was helpful at all, or if you want to challenge me or ask an additional question.
Yeah, Angelica, challenge her. Come on.
No, I'm not going to challenge. I think that's a great comment. I just wanted to add a story that happened to me, because what you mentioned about on TikTok, who the follower might be. One of the TikTok persons asked me my age, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to tell people how old I am here, because I know there's a lot of young people on TikTok. And so I just said, well, I have a son who's 25 years old, and I go, how old are you? And then I'm 9 years old. And I thought,
Oh,
oh, I thought that was so precious, because I thought I have the opportunity to be a positive difference in children's lives there, right? And the funny thing with this young girl is, I think I posted something that I was trying to get followers on, or something on TikTok, and she sent me a video on how to get more followers. So
I love it. I love it.
I thought it was so cute.
I mean,
And
yeah, like who better than a 9-year-old is going to know on TikTok, right?
so it's interesting, because those 9-year-olds though have younger brothers and sisters, and they also have parents, and they might tell their parents, hey, you know. So I like your ideas, and thank you so much for letting me come up, Jason, and thanks for letting me ask. Back over to you guys.
Thanks, Angelica.
Thank you, Angelica. I want to ask you, I want to challenge you with something. Can you make the pig noise? Can you make this noise? Can you replicate this noise, Angelica?
Oh, you wanted Angelica to.
Yeah. Let's try.
Right now I am a pig. I'm working on getting my weight down. Anyways. Okay.
Nice. Very nice.
Very nice. Wendy, how about you? I want to really try.
Always
never-
have fun in here.
I was
Always
going to
have
say, I've
fun.
never done that on a podcast before, so that's a great challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I want to challenge everyone who is listening to come up on stage and do the pig squeal. It's called as pig squeal, right? I'm not sure exactly what you call it.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's a snort.
Pig
I think
snort.
A pig squeal. Yeah,
Snort.
I think a squeal might be a little, more.
Yeah.
There. Very good.
That was a snort. That's right. You're absolute. You know your pig stuff,
I know
Wendy.
my pigs.
Yeah.
Got to.
Yeah, absolutely. Wendy knows her pig. Wendy knows everything about pigs. So that is super cool. I want to welcome Phyllis. Thank you so much, for coming up on stage, Phyllis. Let's start with the pig.
Not
snort.
even gonna happen, dude. Don't
Go-
even try it.
go-
That is so not in my repertoire.
It's not. It's so unbrand that it's not gonna work.
But I wanted to ask Wendy, where did the whole pig and bacon concept come from? Is that your love of bacon that you brought to your brand? How did that even happen for you?
Yeah, it was a branding exercise. So I have a partner, an amazing partner, Dave Custon, and when he and I were coming up with this company and coming up with the name, we just put as many ideas down that we could think of, and then we started to prioritize them. And he's got a culinary background, and so when had kind of narrowed it down, and Content Bacon was one of the finalists. For me, it was a slam dunk. Like I just knew I wanted that name. It just felt aligned with me. And then he kind of added more of the story, the strategy to it, and you know, the culinary aspect where bacon makes everything better,
Of
content makes
course.
everything better. Everybody loves bacon. If you don't like bacon, you're wrong. So all the fun things. And so that's how we ultimately decided to brand our company Content Bacon. And it also just lended itself, sizzling content. If my salutation and emails, if you ever get an email from me, is sizzling regards. We just have so much fun with the brand. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, bacon makes everything better. So who wouldn't want to be associated with a company called Content Bacon?
Yeah. And I love that you talked about the language and communication, because I think a lot of times when people come up with the names for their businesses or their brands, they don't think of the language and the communication that goes along with it. So I like that you said that. And with you being about bacon and him having culinary, what is your background, first of all? Because he's culinary, what is your background?
Well, we both have. So I had a company prior to this called Athena Marketing, and it was a more of a boutique strategic marketing firm. We did a lot of work
Mm-hmm.
with private equity groups and the entities that they owned. So that was the company I had prior to starting Content Bacon. Prior to that, I worked for a lot of consumer durable companies and did a lot of product marketing, overall strategic marketing. So I've always had a background in marketing. I actually went to college for marketing. I'm one of the few
Mm-hmm.
people that what I majored in, I actually did. His expertise was more branding design. So when we joined forces, it was we really wanted to create a company that gave other companies access to being able to have an outsourced content that was effective and affordable. I believe every company typically has a compelling story to tell. Most are just usually doing a very poor job or not doing it at all. And I get so excited when I talk to a founder or a leadership team of a company and I hear what they're up to, and then I compare it to what they're actually saying to their audience, and there's a huge gap. And I know that
Yeah.
we can solve that gap and we can help them be more effective and more successful because they're telling their story in a way that resonates with their target audience. So that's really my passion. My love is I love helping companies grow, be more successful, and using storytelling as a vehicle to do that is just really, really fun.
I love that. And have you noticed, or did you notice when you guys became Content Bacon, or what was it? Hold on, because I moved my page. But when you came up with that name, did you find that you guys were challenged by people like that's just not professional because you put bacon in the name?
No, it was the opposite. People loved it. People remembered it. People would chuckle, when we would introduce ourselves. And people, really got what we were doing because, again, we're not a marketing agency. We're really content as a service. That's the lane. And so
I
it
love
made
that.
our sales process and, a lot easier because people knew exactly who we were and what we did. And it's usually, for most companies, a major pain point that they want to solve. They just don't know how to solve it. So then when they meet a company like ours, it's like, oh my God, where have you been all my life?
Very true. And this is my last one. Hopefully, this is my last one. Have you ever done a live event where you brought bacon?
No, I haven't, and I
Yeah,
should. So I
you
will
should.
tell
You
you
should. You
something.
should.
We we um we used to work with this amazing bakery that my friend owned, and then she sold it. But whenever a new customer would sign up, we would send them these delicious cupcakes. And one of the cupcakes was like a maple cupcake with like a maple cream cheese frosting, and she created candied bacon to go on top of it. And it was like we loved sending these out. And then when she sold the company, the new owners, they didn't want to keep making it for us, and we've never
Yeah.
found a replacement. So I need to put my attention back on having that because it was such a hit and it just gave our customers such joy to receive those and enjoy them. They were delicious.
Yeah, because I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking it's like, okay, when you go into a meeting or a workshop, all the different types of things you can bring as with
Yes.
bacon as a content. Like there's a bacon sandwich, there's a bacon cronut, and just kind of play off that whole thing. That just crossed my mind. So I was just curious
Phyllis,
if
you're
you had ever
brilliant.
done it.
Yes. I need that.
I hope it does not offend the vegetarians, who might be attending the meeting.
Oh,
We
they're
don't
always
care.
offended. It
We
doesn't
don't
matter.
care.
Yeah,
We love to
yeah.
offend
They
vegetarians.
have bacon in the name. They're already offended. Trust me.
Let's offend the vegetarians. Okay. That's so cool. I want to welcome Thomas. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. And Phyllis and Angelica, please continue to be on stage. I have some funny exercise which we are about to do in a few minutes. Let's hear from Thomas. Thank you so much, Thomas. Do you have a question? Would you like to contribute or say hi?
Yeah, hi Jason, hi Wendy. Very interesting topic of conversation. I just had a statement regarding, your discussion on the applicability of different social media platforms. But before I do that, I just wanted to let you know my wife calls me Bacon Boy because I love it, and you get
Yay.
really good bacon in Australia. So there you go. Yeah, so I totally agree with you on the your comments regarding the applicability of LinkedIn versus Instagram, etc., etc. And I guess one example from my perspective is my wife's very big user of Instagram for her interests and her company, but she would never ever touch LinkedIn. She just wouldn't touch it. So I think also I agree with you. You tend to get people get a bit bored when people put exactly the same content on every single platform. It just gets stale, and it's like selling a house with the same pictures with 3 different real estate agents. It's a bit boring. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Bacon Boy.
Thomas, can you make the pig snort noise? Can you try that? We are professionals here. Let's do some rapid fire round. So the idea here is that I'm gonna ask you some silly questions, and I have a common question for everyone on stage. Okay, but majority of them are for you, Wendy. Just to test your bacon knowledge, just to make sure that you are on brand and you know what you're into. Okay, just to make sure about those things. Okay, so my first question is, which bacon is better, smoked or unsmoked?
I mean, I like both, but if I have to choose, I'm gonna choose smoked.
Awesome. Name at least five types of bacon.
Well, I mean, I love a good maple bacon. I love just like crispy bacon. I love like pancetta, like a thicker bacon. And I'm gonna be stuck. I don't know two others off the top of my head. What are two others?
I have no idea. I think we only get one kind of bacon here, which is the strip one. So I think that's all I know. Does anybody
Does
else
pork
would?
belly fall in that?
Ah,
Yeah, pork belly. That's
There
that's
you
a great
go.
one. Yeah,
okay.
that's
Yes.
delicious.
One more, guys. Let's hit the 5 count. So one
I
more.
mean,
Any other?
bacon bits. I just had a salad earlier and it had some nice chewy bacon bits on it that were delicious.
Awesome. All right. So maple bacon, crispy bacon, pancetta, pork
Pork
belly,
belly and bacon bits.
bacon bits.
Honey
Honey
bacon
bacon.
and
Okay.
hickory.
Ah,
Smoked.
hickory. That's a good one.
Honey bacon, hickory. Anything else left, guys? Anybody else? Thomas, would you like to share? Bacon boy.
No, I think that captures all the ones. I
Yeah,
think we only really have two over here.
yeah. Or you can
We
get a
have
side of bacon, like the whole hunk where you can slice it yourself. There's a side of bacon. Yes.
Side of bacon. That is awesome. Okay, next question. Next question, which I have for you, Wendy. If you had to describe the smell of cooking bacon in 3 words, what would that be?
Delicious, aromatic, and fatty.
Delicious, aromatic, and what was that? Fatty.
Fatty, but like in a good way, like you just know it's gonna just be delicious.
That's super cool. That is really cool. Okay, next question. Bacon as a dessert. Okay, would this be considered genius or madness?
Genius for sure. As stated earlier when I was sharing with Phyllis my cupcakes that we used to share, it was delicious.
That is awesome. But you said cupcake. Did it had the ingredient of bacon inside the cupcake?
Not inside, it had it sprinkled on top.
Mm.
But having it inside would have been just amazing. It's a great idea.
Awesome, awesome. I want to ask the same question to everyone else on stage, though. Wanted to get people's perspective. So, Phyllis, would you say yay or nay?
Meat and sweet are always a great thing. Bacon and sweet potato pie, bacon and pancakes. Yes, meat and sweet are great.
Awesome, awesome. How about you, Thomas? I'm sure you're gonna say yes.
no.
No?
Being a conservative Australian, I don't mix savoury with sweet. So I love savoury aspect of bacon, but I would never dream of putting it on my ice cream.
All right, I respect that. Okay, let's hear from Angelica. Angelica, would you yay or nay?
We're gonna go down south and make some bacon and waffles.
Oh yeah. Now you're talking.
That is awesome. So Angelica says yes. Okay, all right. Next question. Okay, in your opinion, bacon themed merchandise like bacon scented candles or bacon flavored toothpaste, would you buy it?
I get those all the time. Everyone loves to give me that kind of stuff. Bacon mints, bacon toothpaste. I've never gotten a bacon candle. I'm not a fan. They're cute, but they're not something I want to consume.
Interesting. I want to ask
Bacon's
everybody
for
else.
eating.
Uh-huh. I want to ask anybody else who is listening on stage, have you guys ever came across like a scented candle made out of bacon? Have you tried that? Does that thing really exist? Phyllis.
I I haven't tried it, but I have an idea for advertising or for marketing more bacon stuff. Have come up with some bacon type T-shirts with different types of slogans.
We have that.
Oh, there you.
We do.
So share
We have some
those with us. Share
amazing
those with
swag.
us.
That
What are
is,
the slogans? Is it okay if I ask, Jason?
yeah,
Well,
of
one of
course.
them is either you like bacon or you're wrong. That's the main one we use. We have another. We have these really great work notebooks that just say like, write that shit down. Um, I'll have to remember the others, but those are the two main ones that people love.
That is so cool, Wendy. I
Yeah.
appreciate.
Can I ask? Can
Uh-huh.
I ask something real quick, Jason?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she could put the her website in the comment section so we could check those out later.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think I have mentioned Wendy's website under the event comments. Like if you look at the long description, it's there. But if it's a specific website to buy merchandise, Wendy, do not hesitate to share that. Yeah, I wanted to get Phyllis and Thomas' opinion on the scented candle, which is made out of bacon. Have you guys tried this? Have you come across anything of this sort?
I have not seen, heard, or smelled it, and I would be mad if I did because my house would constantly smell like bacon, and I would always want it. So no.
Thomas, being conservative at your side, is this a thing which you have experienced or come across? Would you like it? Would you say no?
I haven't really come across it, so but open to suggestions, Jason.
Awesome. I have not tried it. I don't think it's available here. But if you guys do try it, if it's available, yeah, post it on the notes here on LinkedIn, and I think let some people buy it, for sure. I want, let's actually, we have reached the end of our discussion. So, Wendy, I want to actually give you the opportunity to promote your business. How can people reach out to you? What kind of services you would be able to assist, generally our audience with, etc.
Yeah, I really appreciate, again, you having me, and I love the participation. So thank you all for being so participatory. And you can find me at contentbacon.com. And I'm on all the social media. Wendy at contentbacon.com is my email. And we provide content creation services for companies. We have subscriptions that start at $1,500 a month and go up, but we also do custom things. I also just love having conversations with companies to help them create their own content strategy that perhaps they can implement if they're not at a stage where they can hire us. So I welcome you to reach out to me for anything and everything. And like I mentioned, we have the evolution of our brand is going to be unveiled in the next 4-ish weeks with some new offerings around turning your CRM into a constant revenue machine. So if those are things that you're interested in, please stay in touch because there's some good stuff that we're going to be launching.
That is so cool, Wendy. I appreciate you sharing all of that information. And I would highly encourage people to reach out to Wendy if you do think whatever she said made sense, and that is something which your company or your organization wants to take advantage and leverage of. And on that note, I wanted to just quickly update people on the next week's show, episode 14, season 5, positioning your business from the gut, by Nisa, with Nisa. It's going to be live on April 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be a very cool, insightful conversation because she is a soul-led brand photographer. Again, heavily into content creation using videography, photography, stuff like that. I think it's going to give us different perspectives on how this whole thing works. And Nisa happened to share that, positioning business using your gut or from the gut or taking decisions from your gut, both through intuition and intrinsic decision making process. I think according to her, it really helps you in shaping the trajectory of your business. So if you are interested, RSVP to that event. It's actually under the event comments here. You should be able to find this also on my LinkedIn profile under events. Wendy, before we wrap up today's conversation, if there is one thing you could leave our listeners and they can take away from this whole conversation, what would that be?
Yeah, I think I would go back to every company has an amazing story to tell. And so are you telling yours effectively? And a great place to start if you feel like you're not is really developing that strategy. Who's your target audience? Why should they care about you? What problems do you solve for them? And how are you going to reach them? So I think that if you do nothing else but make sure you can answer those questions, then you're on the right path. And I wish everyone just so much winning and success. And if I can be part of that in any way, it's my honor and pleasure.
That is so cool, Wendy. I want to personally thank each and everyone who participated in during this conversation. Angelica, thank you. Thomas, thank you. And Phyllis, thank you. And everybody else who is listening to us, thank you so much for your live love and support. Even if you are listening to this on replay, but please have an amazing day, morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're in the world. I think you guys are amazing. Stay in touch, and I'll continue to offer more and more content about entrepreneurship, and I hope it really helps you guys. Thank you once again. Please take care.